We've been together almost 9 years. To everybody else, we look solid. Date nights, matching outfits at the family reunion, smile in the Christmas photos. But inside this house, we are just existing. He's a good man, the kind of man my mama prayed I'd find, works hard, doesn't run the streets, take care of home. And that's the part that makes it so hard to say out loud, I'm unhappy.
Mm.
Because how do you leave a good person just because you don't feel alive anymore?
In this episode of In the Meantime, we're talking about the love that lingers when you're still together, but your soul already knows it's time to go. Through this week, Porch Talk's letter, Still in It, we hear from a woman caught between gratitude and truth, staying with a good man, but realizing goodness isn't the same as alignment. Together, we explore what it means to honor endings without shame, to tell the truth even when it trembles, and to understand that letting go can also be an act of love. And as always, we'll leave you with a little truth to carry in the meantime.
Hello. This is In the Meantime.
Wisdom for the spaces in between who we were.
And who we are becoming.
Welcome everybody to episode 4, Heart Matters of the Heart, part 3. When love isn't enough. Ooh, this is juicy.
Yes.
This one is for the person who's still in it, still cooking dinner, still showing up, still trying, but quietly wondering if love alone can carry what's broken. It's about that sacred but scary space between staying and letting go.
Because sometimes it's not about whether you love them, it's about whether the love is still feeding you. That that's a difference. That's a different kind of love. That's a different kind of love. Is the love feeding you, or are you feeding the love? Sounds like a big state of confusion, a big ball of confusion.
All right, so before we jump in, it's time for our Porch Talk. Porch Talk is where we share a story, and it can be from one of us or from one of you, our listeners, that grounds today's conversation in a real life experience. These stories remind us that honesty is its own form of healing. So I'm going to pass the mic over to Mom. Mom, take it from here, and let's get into our Porch Talk letter.
Dear In the Meantime, I haven't left, but I think my heart already has. We've been together almost 9 years. To everybody else, we look solid. Date nights, matching outfits at the family reunion, smile in the Christmas photos. But inside this house, we are just existing. He's a good man, the kind of man my mama prayed I'd find, works hard, doesn't run the streets, take care of home. And that's the part that makes it so hard to say out loud, I'm unhappy. Because how do you leave a good person just because you don't feel alive anymore? We used to laugh until we cried. Now we sit across from each other in silence, scrolling on our phones. Some nights he falls asleep on the couch and I don't even ask him to come to bed. The other day, he grabbed my hand in the grocery store and instead of butterflies, I felt guilt because I don't want to hurt him. I just can't keep pretending. I've talked to God, to my girlfriends, even wrote a list of reasons to stay, but it always ends up feeling like I'm trying to convince myself. I keep wondering if love is supposed to feel like this, little comfort and no connection. And he hasn't done anything wrong. There's no big betrayal, no scandal, just stillness. And sometimes stillness is its own kind of ache. I haven't said any of this to him yet, but every morning I wake up and feel that pull, the quiet knowing that something sacred between us has ended. How do you walk away from someone who didn't break your heart? They just stopped touching it. Find still in it.
Mm, 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 mm. Miss Angela got popcorn like she watching a movie.
Girl, I told y'all to bring you snacks.
That's
I got me a
right.
little snack.
Yes,
That's right.
little snack. You did.
That was heavy because
Mm-hmm.
it's not all about the big fallout or betrayal.
Mm-hmm.
It's about when peace turns into distance
Mm-hmm.
and you start grieving a love that technically still exists.
Mm-hmm.
Communication is so important. That's what I'm getting from all of this. Communication is so important.
Wow.
This is hard. Well, not hard, but it is. I think it is a reality for a lot of people, and so I think it's hard to talk about. It's hard to reconcile. So she said, he's a good man, and that's what makes it hard, right? Because I think she was trying to convey in this that there's no, is you do something, then the consequence, right? Then I can say like, oh, I'm out of here, right? Because there's this thing. But when there is no thing, that is just kind of like a straw that broke the camel's back or anything, it just it probably is just so much more confusing. And that line, how many people are sitting, with that exact tension, right? That he's good, and that's what makes it hard. So there's no villain, there's no scandal, but just the slow truth that love's is stagnant right now. It just stopped growing. I will say, y'all be taking little notes as you read the story, but I do think it was interesting. I think at the end she said, she said all this stuff, and he hasn't said anything wrong, he hasn't done no big betrayal, blah, blah, blah. And then the question was, how do you walk away from someone who didn't break your heart? And I was thinking, walk away. Why is that the only option here? Because it did, it was walk away, and it wasn't how do we get back what was lost. And so I thought that was kind of interesting, that the one thing that she provided as the option was show me how to exit stage right on this thing. I have some more thoughts about it, but I just thought that was interesting at the end.
To that point though, I think sometimes we start leaving in our minds much earlier than the actual time that we perhaps choose to exit, right? And so, sometimes when we're in relationship, and it can be something like when somebody is a villain, when something did happen, or in her case, no big thing, no big scandal happened. But I think what happens is when we start having these feelings, we start exiting out in our mind, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
Yeah.
and then eventually we might stay in there 8, 9, 10 years, but all that time we've been slowly. So then when it happens, it's like the only option in your head, because you feel like you've gone through the other options previously. And like Angela said, but because there's no communication, the other person might not even know that this is what's going on in your head. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah.
Because we have always been taught that leaving a good person makes us the problem.
Yes.
That is where ungrateful, unrealistic, unexpected, or expected too much. But what is the truth is just it runs its course.
I wonder, and I'm not, I don't know the situation. So there's no way, even if I did know the situation, I don't tell people what to do, except on the last episode, I was like, I'm gonna leave them. No. Leave them, girl. Okay. But I will say, I do wonder though, how much of this is our generation, maybe, if you will, or younger generation. I almost kind of put on here, I wonder what age she is, or how old she is. Because I do think that we have become a people generally, and I think this is true even more so for younger generation, where it has to be now all good, and anytime there is some conflict or it's just not as exciting, we're ready to exit and move to the right. And we think about, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, I'm saying this is sometimes what it is though. You think about jobs and how people's career shifts and changes. The average age of somebody at a company, 20 years ago, 40 years ago, is very, now it's like, don't like it anymore, I'm out of here.
Right.
Or we think about even school, where the gratification is not instant. Then it's like, well, I don't want to do that. I'm not trying to do. We think about investing. our money in the market, or saving for retirement, or all these things. It's kind of like, if I don't see the benefit in it right now, I cannot be patient. And I think about people who talk about relationships and the ebbs and flows of relationships, where it's not always going to be the most exciting thing, right? But that season will run its course, or could run its course, right? And then you might enter into another exciting season. Or, like you all say, the communication to just say, hey, this doesn't feel as exciting, and maybe there are some things that we can do to bring back the excitement that was once lost. It just seems like the person writing, and like they may have been thinking about this for years, I don't know, but it does kind of seem like I'm just not into this anymore. It's not, I'm not jumping for joy every time I see this person anymore. And sometimes that is just what comes in the course of relationship, when you get used to somebody, when it's not all just flowers and rainbows every day. So I don't know. I think that's something that I would, like, I wish I could ask the person, like, is this a matter of you're in a season right now, and we all go through seasons in our lives. With our friendships, with our family, we go through seasons in relationships, and it doesn't always mean that it has to be the end of that relationship. Perhaps, I don't know, but I do wonder sometimes if we just are always reaching for the next exciting thing. Our algorithms have programmed us to do that, right? Scrolling through, attention span shorter and shorter and shorter, So anyway, that's what I was thinking there.
Wow. I would tell her, like I tell my students, put your pockets in a seat.
Put your pockets in a seat?
Explain.
Meaning, just like Tiffany just said, we go through different seasons, and sometimes we may be in that season long time or short time. I've been married for 21 years.
Wow.
I can't tell you how many seasons I done been through.
Right. Yeah.
I think about Mom when I first went to college in that first year, like I was excited before I left, and then I got there and it was, exciting for a while. And then I was like, I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like how I feel. I used to be a big fish in a small pond. Now I'm a small fish in a big pond. And I'm not used to that. And I was very homesick. I was in another state. It was a lot. But I'm so glad that I continue to persevere in the meantime, because it really became a highlight of my life, and one of the best decisions I've ever made, to go away to school, to push through. And I just went back last weekend for homecoming, and wow, this was home for us. And like, look at all the friends we met along the way who are still friends with, so sometimes things just take a little more perseverance, I think, grit. And you have to learn how to.
You're right.
Press through sometimes when it's not all fun and games. Anyway.
So I hear what you're saying, Tiffany. But last time we were talking, and this was a situation where the husband cheated, I think, and you were like, I'm out of here. Like, you weren't taking that at all, right? Like, and now I'm listening to our conversation, and this is somebody where there's not like some big scandal, something they did. However, it's still about the relationship. Like, right? It's not, they're not feeling this. Lady is just not feeling the relationship. So I'm trying to, in my mind, think about, so what's the difference? Is it because we feel like if somebody did something that gives us a reason to exit the situation, right? When in fact, it might not be something they did specifically, but it causes you to, maybe you're still having some of those similar feelings, like, I'm just not feeling this anymore. I've lost respect for the relationship that we had, like that we used to have, or whatever it is. Like, I'm just wondering, what's the big difference between last week when the letter said that the person left because they cheated, versus this week when they didn't do something specifically that we're aware of, right? But we're okay with them trying to hang in there, or at least we're talking about why just jump ship initially. Any thoughts on that answer?
Yes. Oh, well. So yes, despite my girl break up with him, quick, get out of there quick persona, I am a loyalist and a lover girl. I believe in love. I believe in the magic that can happen within individuals when they are loved properly, correctly, etc. Right. And so I am not a person who believes in just kind of like throwing away something easily without consideration and thought. So definitely if infidelity, which was the last topic we were talking about on the last episode, is a deal breaker for you, then in that one he clearly just had no respect for her, and was treating her badly. And I don't believe anybody should stay in a situation where they're being treated badly, and especially if somebody could be bringing you something that could alter your own physical and mental health, etc. So that's the difference for me. And I think sometimes that society has kind of romanticized love and marriage in a way that I think does us a disservice sometimes. You think about how we grew up, right, with the fairy tale of the man coming to rescue the princess and living, slaying the dragons and, freeing her to just live happily ever after. And as much as we know that's a fairy tale, it still is embedded in our psyche when it comes to what relationships and marriages are supposed to be like. We see the beautiful weddings, we see the Pinterest boards, we see this, we read the romantic stories and the novels and all these different, things. Hallmark check. Listen, hey, the Christmas season is upon us. I will be playing my Hallmark Christmas movies on repeat.
Me too.
Yeah, and I think that it's great, right? But the reality that we can exist with another person and we're both growing and stretching and going through our seasons, with each other, is something that is not always portrayed because it's not as romantic, right? And so I think for me, that's, it's almost kind of like correcting a fallacy in terms of what a marriage or a relationship is supposed to be. I'm not a person I'm also not a person who's like, hey, be miserable for the rest of your life, right? I definitely don't believe in that either. But I do think sometimes it might be a matter of, nothing necessarily has happened, but you feel like the flame has gone. But I didn't read anything that talked about let's go to counseling. We've gone to therapy. We're doing some work. We're communicating and doing everything that we can, because this is a marriage. This is not just a boyfriend, girlfriend situation, right? This is I'm married.
Okay. Well, let me insert. So even if though they were cheating, even if they did something that we as individuals consider disrespectful, should not the same energy, patience, and whatever be allowed for that person as well? Right? Like, so I'm saying, so I hear what you're saying, and I totally get it, but and also I'll say, so whether it's they didn't do anything that we can point out, right? But even if they did, because we're all imperfect human beings, because we make poor choices. But you said it, this is a marriage. So if it's a marriage, where you've invested time and energy and years, and that person made a poor choice, right? That we can pinpoint, versus in this situation, should not the same energy be given or mindset to that as well? Being that, look, it's still an issue. It's still something maybe you could go to counseling for. It's still something that maybe you can work through, because people work through it all the time.
Absolutely.
They work through infidelity rather, disrespect, all of the things.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. I think that if a person, any marriage relationship that's going through something, I'm absolutely a fan of let's go talk to somebody. Let's see, where things might be if both people are trying to work through it. But I will be honest with you, in the last one, I will have to go back and pull up our reader's letter for that one. But it gave a lot of characteristics of, not that the person was a narcissist, but there were some narcissistic traits, right? And so when she talks about, I bring up something, so she's attempting communication, and he just gaslights her and turns it around on her, right? I asked him about this or whatever, and he just, blew up at me and gets real defensive. Now it's my, those to me are traits of somebody who is not interested in doing that work with you. Now, Mama, you know more about this than I do in terms of personality types and what can be resolved and what can't be resolved. But I think in a situation where me even just bringing something, I think you said in our last episode, what makes a good relationship, being able to safely express what you're thinking, right, to this person. And in that situation, she couldn't even safely express what she was thinking, because he will automatically turn it around on her and say, whatever, right? And so I think that there are some situations where you're bringing something, you're communicating your needs, you're in pain, this person is betraying you, they're causing, this deep hurt, and they are not willing to engage with you on making the relationship better. I just think the scenario of that versus you're not even talking to him in this scenario, you're not even saying, hey, let's have a conversation about that. And so I just think that, to me, I could be wrong because I'm not a relationship expert, but I just think, to me, that it's a very different situation, right? That where other options might be helpful and useful to explore versus somebody just being like, I'm gonna do what I want to do and I don't care what you think, and if you bring it up, and I'm gonna chop your head off,
Right.
thing. So
What you think, Angela? What you think?
Well, I'm thinking she said that I'm reading back. She tried everything: prayer, therapy, the list of reasons to stay. What happens when you realize the list is longer than your joy? What happens when you realize, that it's like an ongoing thing. I am just a firm believer that you don't give up.
Really?
See the flip now. That's just that's just the flip side.
Okay.
The flip side of me is when you say I do, it's for life.
Yeah.
That's just me now. That's just me.
No. That's right. And that's a good point. Because then my question would be, are you giving up on yourself in that scenario, right? Because even if I say I don't want to give up on this marriage, but ultimately if the person is not willing to make some effort to try to make it work, does that mean that I'm giving up on me? So I'm still going to stay there, even though I might be miserable, and again, it depends on the situation, because in the first situation, the last episode, it was more because that person, like you said, Tiffany, did a lot of things that showed that they didn't want to work it out. They didn't want to do any of that. In this situation, she's saying, I haven't even talked to him yet. So yes, I think that could be a little different, but it's still at the end of all of that, once she talks to him, have some conversation, because I do think it's only fair to bring up how you're feeling with your person that you've been married to for years, right? To have conversation, and then you all have to figure out what you do beyond that. But I'm saying, even if you're committed to marriage, which I know for a lot of people, and especially religious people, right? For a lot of religious people, we're taught, hang in there, don't give up. I don't care what they do or whoever, you still just need to hang in there. And I'm saying, at what point do we do what's best for us? Because I think sometimes we can lose ourselves in a lot of that. And so if we decide, I'm just going to hang in here regardless, now I'm going to go the rest, maybe 10, 15 more years being miserable, not having the things I want, not even really fulfilling my purpose, right? Because if I feel like my purpose is tied to this person, but what about me? And what about my thoughts and my feelings? So anyway, I think it's so complex. It's such a challenge to figure out, what do we do in these situations?
It's got to be so tough. It's like Beck said, why do we feel guilt for wanting peace within us?
Yes.
Just love on yourself.
Yeah.
Just love on yourself.
But then do you, in the meantime, as you're loving on yourself, does that mean, because loving on myself could mean what Tiffany just said, why is it that we want
walking away and being free of this person or this situation?
But that could be loving on me. That could be, you know what? I'm not going to take this, especially the last one where he was treating her any kind of way. He wasn't trying to make it work. What if the person not trying to make it work? What if you're trying to do everything related to your values?
Loving on yourself, you're not. When I say love on yourself, loving on yourself might show you how to walk away. Loving on yourself and
Say
Doggone.
deuces,
Mm.
deuces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but, but, but,
Okay.
you know, and I think that's such a good point, Miss Angela. I also think that society, I'm saying this because I'm a woman. I know there are different pressures for men, but I will say that this self-sacrificing characteristic that is largely bestowed upon women, and particularly bestowed upon Black women, that we don't, you know, putting ourselves last is a sign of good
Yes.
moral character.
Mm.
You know what I mean? You know how people pass away? I always say this. Don't say this about me when I pass away. But I always, you know, when people say like, "Oh, she was such a great person. She did everything for everybody else. She always put herself last. She always, you know, she put
Yes.
herself last. She never rested. She never like that's not. I don't want this. I don't want that. You know." And
Right.
but there is like value in being self-sacrificing, and I believe everybody does that for their family and for their relationship to some degree. But I think it's especially acute for us, and I think that is why we carry so much guilt, you know,
That's true.
in deciphering these types of scenarios. I'll also say this: I don't know if the young lady has thought about this. If you're listening, girl, but you know, aside from all the other things that you know might be possible in this scenario, it also might be that you're not bringing a really great energy to the relationship either, because you feel this way. Now you feel the way you feel, so it's not a like, you know, knock on you, but you could be preventing him from being with somebody who really, really wants to be with him, who
Mm.
really will be happy with him, who really will enjoy the relationship with him, and that you might possibly find someone else who you feel like would be a better fit and scenario for you. And I want to say this, but you know, I don't believe in scarcity mindset, but I want to say, but girl, be careful because it's strange out here in these days. You might think it's better than it is. It ain't, girl. Go talk to some of your single friends and they'll tell you what's out here. So I also look at it from that aspect as well. You know, sometimes somebody walking away from us, even at the time, we may not have known, but it was the best thing they could have done to make room for somebody else who was going to be really in, you know, really in the relationship for the long haul. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I like that mindset. So that piece I really agree, because I do think sometimes we hang on, even though we know, because then, wow, now I'm thinking about how selfish of it, this is just my opinion,
mhm.
how selfish I would be if I hung on to somebody knowing that I'm not really into this the way I should be into it,
Mhm.
but because of how it looks, because I want to, I'm doing it because I don't want people to see me in this certain light, like,
Bad
or
person.
this bad person, you gotten a divorce, or you left your family, or you
Mhm.
whatever, right? So now I'm thinking, wow, how selfish of me, right, to sit up and hold on to something, even though I know I'm not giving my all to that, even though I know I'm not really into it. I'm
Yeah.
just hanging on for some other reasons.
Mhm. That's not fair to you or the
That,
person.
to me, or that when Angela was talking about self-love, right? So if I'm just holding on because I want to be seen as this spirit, maybe a very
Mhm.
religious, God-fearing woman who's strong, who hangs in there regardless of what's going on, when in fact I know that the love is not there, and or maybe the love for them, well, however it goes, the situation is just not working out. And maybe we've tried and maybe we've done some of the things. But I think for me, I would start thinking about how selfish like you just said, like maybe I need to let this go so I can move on, and maybe there's something better, maybe not. And or they can move forward,
Mhm.
right?
Or
As
some
well. So
absolutely.
wow, that's just
Yeah.
that's something to think about.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about that loneliness inside the relationship, that like kind of quiet space that looks fine on the outside but feels hollow, of course, on the inside. So how do you
Yes.
know when that stillness has turned into like stuckness, like quicksand,
Mm,
Like um how do you kind of navigate that some real in the meantime spaces?
you're right. You're right.
And I've
Like, right.
talked to people who have been married, who are married, and feel even more lonely in the marriage than they did when they were
Single.
single.
Yes.
I've never
Yes.
been married, so I can't, attest to this. Of course, the two of you have, but I know you also have talked to a lot of people who, maybe have felt the same way. How would you tell somebody how to navigate that?
Wow, that's a good question. And any thoughts,
How do
Angela,
you
before I
know?
jump into here?
Girl, it's got me thinking all over the road, girl. I'm just wiggling and wiggling.
Mhm.
Mm,
Um, just thinking and thinking, I'm thinking about even being with someone for 21 years. How do you know what love feels like?
mm,
Because it's always different. It's different. I mean, and I think the older I get, the more I realize that life itself it's about me.
mm,
It is
mm,
about me, and knowing where I am and knowing what I am to do with it. So,
mm.
Mm,
Wow.
yeah.
So as you were talking, I was thinking about the various versions of ourselves.
Mm,
So when you get with somebody, let's say you, Angela, you've been married 21 years. And so when you think back to 21 years ago, you are a different person than where you are now. And so as I'm thinking about this couple, this young lady who wrote in to ask this question,
or old lady.
or that's right, she didn't tell her age. You're right.
Julie
And
said,
I'm thinking about where they were when they got married, right? Like what version, because again, things change over time. We grow and mature and evolve. And one of the things that I've done some premarital and marriage
Sure.
discussions and had conversations with people. And it's been interesting because one of the big issues, especially for a lot of people now, once they start experiencing empty nest syndrome, right? When the kids leave, then they're like, if you notice, the divorce rate increases sometimes. And people say,
"Mm,
y'all have been together all of this time. Why are you getting a divorce now? Like, this should be the best time of your life. You've raised your children. But the issue is they're two different people. When they got married, they were just starting life and, doing things differently. They were
different
young
ideas."
and
Yeah.
yeah, all of that, raising kids, and you get so into what you're doing, you're so busy doing life that you really sometimes don't stop and think about each other in a way that's intentional. And so then when the kids are gone, who probably took up most of your time, especially if you're a very active parent, now it's like you're looking at a completely different person. And so
Mm,
I always tell people to now is a perfect time to get to know this version that's sitting across from you, which can kind of be like starting a new relationship, right? Because
yeah. Yeah.
now you're talking about different people. So you got to get to know them all over again, going out, asking the questions, doing the things that y'all did initially to get to know each other, to get to know that version of each other. And so
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's that. And then the other thing I'll say right quick is when we talk about loneliness, right? Like being with somebody, and y'all, or one of you all mentioned this, and you can be with somebody physically, but on the inside still feel really, really lonely. And so I do wonder, like the person who wrote the message, like what do you do with that? Like those feelings where you just feel stuck. And of course, I'm gonna say therapy. That's gonna be one of the things because sometimes we need tools to help us
Mm,
find the way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm not even saying where to have some kind of outcome we think. It's
mm,
not about what we would think. Like when I'm talking to people, it's about the outcome for them. But sometimes we need tools to kind of chop away at what's going on so we can kind of get to the root of it and then make a decision about what we're going to do once we start really looking at the situation, right? And
Yeah.
she mentioned they hadn't talked and she didn't say anything about therapy and all this kind of stuff. So that means, at some point, yes, there's loneliness. Yes, like I'm by myself, but I do think that's the time to, if possible, to reach out to somebody to help you kind of navigate that.
I think she did mention therapy too, that
Oh,
she had.
did she mention it? Oh, okay.
But I
Yeah.
do wonder if
Oh, she
they,
did.
Prayer,
She tried everything,
therapy.
prayer
Yeah.
yeah,
therapy.
but I wonder if
Okay.
they have together, perhaps.
Together. Right, right.
And,
I think that's where my mind, absolutely.
mhm, yeah.
Right.
And I think Miss Angela mentioned something, how do you even know, what love is supposed to feel like or look like,
Yes.
right? And I think that goes back to what I was saying earlier, the version of love that we've seen, it may not always be the super exciting, the reality may look a little different from what we've seen just happen in the world around us. So I think that's the other thing, like, asking yourself the question of what is it that I want to feel here? What do I think I'm supposed to be feeling? And I also think, Ms. Angela talked about, you know, um, kind of falling back in love with yourself and taking time for yourself and all that kind of great stuff. I think too, as you move through the different life seasons, I wonder if there is thought to how much is love supposed to fill your life? How much is it supposed to fill your cup?
Mm.
Right? Because if you are, let's just say, for example, I don't think she mentioned kids here, but let's just say you're young and you're in a relationship with somebody, you all get married, and you don't have, maybe you don't have children yet. Maybe you're, just starting out your careers, but it's not overwhelming or whatever. You don't have all these bills and all this different kind of stuff, right? So like the things that kind of fill your day may be much smaller earlier on, right? And so love just has all this space to exist in that, comfortable, all this extra time. Let's laugh on the couch till we cry. But if you putting away trying to convince a 5-year-old to go to bed, and your laundry is 4 times what it used to be, like, so maybe now you're thinking, wow, the love in my life only occupies that much when I just used to have so much space for it. So we should just dedicate so much more time. I wonder too, like, if any of that is part of the consideration of kind of like, again, different seasons, different place in life. And it may not be that it's just gone, but I think about Granny and Granddaddy's old house where they had like a stove that you had to light the pilot to turn the stove on sometimes, because it would not always just come on by turning the knob like a gas stove or whatever.
Right.
Now, it's not to say that you ain't got to turn it a couple of times and light a piece of paper and roll it up, the piece of newspaper.
Right.
But it may require, because it hasn't, been on for, a couple of days or whatever, it may require you light it and hear that click a couple of times and try it a couple of times and call some help in to come help you light it, all of that. And it may, be able to be kind of turned back on. Now if she sounds like she's pretty much kind of done, and now it's just wondering how to get out of the situation. But I will say, if somebody is listening, there are many different opportunities or things that you might consider in terms of what is next and best for you in the scenario. Again, not saying that you should do one or the other, but
just figuring that. And you said, so I was thinking about something as you were talking, because she asked, how do you leave someone who didn't break your heart? Um, what does it mean to outgrow someone who didn't do anything wrong? They just stopped meeting you where you are. And so I was thinking, but where are you? And does she really know where she is? Right? Because she mentioned therapy. And like you said, I don't know if they went together, if she just went by herself to try to figure out. But that's a question I think sometimes, y'all, we don't even know ourselves where we are in this scenario, right? We just know how we feel. And like you said, Angela, taking the time to, on your way to work or whenever it is, really kind of doing some reflective and introspective work where you're thinking about you. A song might come on or something might happen. It really makes you think about where you are. And so what I would say to people who are listening is, where are you? Right? Like, when you think about where you are in life, and I'm not just talking about with regard to your job, with regard to but just internally, because I wonder if she really, really knows, like you said earlier, what it is that she wants. What is she trying to feel? What does love really look, what does it look like? How does it feel? If it was there, if she loved, like, how would that look to her, for her to be able to say, I love this man? Like, what would that look like? And so I think sometimes we do have to stop and sit back and be introspective and really think about, because I think we just throw this stuff out sometimes too, like, right? We throw out words like love, being in love, or loving somebody, or wanting certain things. But for me, I have to now, as I'm getting older, a little more seasoned, I really do sometimes stop and reflect. Dolores, what are you talking about? Like, what is it that you're really saying here? What is it that you really want? What is it that Like, what does that really look like to you? So anyway,
And I
I
was
just
surprised.
want to,
Oh, I'm sorry.
no,
And I
go
was
ahead.
surprised there would be some seasons where you have to be committed to the commitment. Like in the times where you're not feeling it, like Miss Angela said,
Yes.
you made the commitment,
Mm-hmm.
you have to determine what priority that is,
Yes, in
for
that.
you
Mm-hmm.
and, whatever. But yeah, I would just tell y'all as a person who is not married, it's kind of scary when I read stories like this. It is because I know that there are seasons and ebbs and flows in relationships. But when you're thinking about being with somebody forever and thinking about marriage and having these conversations and doing all this, you're like, dang, like there could be a day where I just be like, oh,
And
then,
like that's woo, that's scary.
okay, now I'm finna get real. What about sex?
Mm.
What about
Mm.
what about sex? Let me tell
Let's
you
talk
something.
about sex.
That stuff is real.
Okay, Angela, you're gonna have to tell us what you mean by that. So when you say you bring up sex, right? What do
Yes.
you mean? Come on, expound on that.
Well, what I'm
Mama,
talking
you get too excited.
Yep.
I'm talking about sex. Where is the sex safe? Is
Oh.
it, I mean, or does she want to get a little more freakier
Mm.
in the room? Do she want to bring in some sex toys?
Yeah.
Uh
Yes.
Girl, what's going on?
Mhm.
Okay. And so what you're saying though, so in addition to just the relationship piece, which sex is a part of,
Yes,
you're
yes,
saying, do you feel
yes,
like it's something that she maybe feel like she's missing in the relationship with this person,
yes.
and is part of that, that the sex is not as exciting as perhaps it
Or it
used to
may
be?
not be existing at all.
Yeah, and because she don't even want. She's mentioned something
Yeah,
about not when he
grabbing
touches
her
her
hand.
hand.
I
Yeah,
can't
that
imagine
she
he touching anything else.
right.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
If
yeah.
Amen.
she's
That's
mentioning her grabbing his hand, I mean,
yeah,
I can't
yeah.
imagine. And
It
that's
is
and I think this is how they say like what's something you discover as an adult and as you get older that you didn't realize when you were young. How many people don't have sex
yes.
at all for
Yep.
years and years and years?
Or have
Many
different
people.
bedrooms. I know people who sleep in different bedrooms,
Well, I
right?
think that's okay.
No, I mean like
Too.
they're not
But
I
having
yes,
do.
sex and they
I do
sleep
too,
in and
Tiffany.
they sleep
I
in.
do too, baby. I
Yeah,
do
no.
too.
Now I get the sleeping in different because if I ever get, but I'm saying like they don't have sex, like their sex life is just not.
exactly.
People have
Yeah.
said that. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So, that certainly is a component that a lot of people married and otherwise struggle with.
absolutely,
Again,
a big component. So I'm glad you brought that up, Angela, because I think sometimes we don't talk about that part of it,
yeah,
right? Which I think is
using that.
so
Mhm.
very important,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And
Yeah,
I think the other thing is again, we don't know how old she is, but one of the things that I feel like we're talking about now more than we have in the past is hormonal changes that women go through. We go
yeah.
through perimenopause, and every day I learn a new darn symptom of perimenopause,
Right,
irritability,
right,
feeling joint pain, just all kind of stuff. I'm like, well, I thought it was just hot flashes. That's the only thing
right.
I heard of until a couple years ago, and just all these things and just learning all these changes that take place in your body. And I think some of that is we talk about hormonal changes and your brain is rewiring itself and how you think and so it may not even necessarily be this matter of like, oh, I feel so guilty because I don't feel this way anymore. It biologically could be that
Yeah,
your body is going through changes where you don't want to be touched, you don't want to be talk to somebody, you don't want to be next to a bunch of testosterone when like I don't know, but the hormones in our bodies that help us when we are younger to for some of us desire children, to crave testosterone, to crave being next to a man, like all of those
hmm
things, the progesterone and the estrogen and all of that is decreasing, and you may not have that desire anymore, and I think that when you say like talk to somebody, mom, I think, yes, on the therapy standpoint, it is so important. But I think also it might be a matter where she might want to go to a doctor and say, hey, I'm having feelings. Because a lot of the things that our body experiences is from what, or that our mind experiences is from how our body is feeling. And a lot of things that happen in our mind manifest in our bodies and all, just, and at the end of the day.
Yes.
At the end of the day, girl, you want to be with that man? Get out of there.
Yeah. Now, see, as you were talking, that's what I was thinking. Because what we do, y'all, if y'all think about it, sometimes we'll sit up and we'll think about all the things that could, and again, we don't have enough information. So if somebody
we don't know if it's a family being
right, because if I was working with
if
somebody
she's
like
black
this
or white,
yeah,
because I did my dissertation on menopause, black going through menopause. There's a difference with black women and white women. So we and we go through different things.
Yes, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
all of that plays a part.
I was getting ready to say, Angela, as you were saying that part, and Tiffany, I was reflecting on what you said. You said at the end of the day, maybe she just don't want to be there, right? And I was thinking though, as we were all talking though, I was saying, wow, we come up with all these reasons, and again, we don't know, right? Because it's kind of vague, and as a person who does some counseling or I call it having discussions with people. I'm not a therapist, a licensed therapist, but I do have discussions with people. And when I'm talking, I need much more information, right? Like you have to ask questions and get more information. But then I was thinking, we sitting up here trying to think about, as women, we try to think about all the reasons as to why, what's going on with her and right. And maybe it's this and maybe it's that, which I think we should right. That's the whole point of this, to have the conversation. But like you said, at the end of the day, perhaps she said she had been to therapy. So perhaps she has explored all of these. Perhaps, Tiffany, she has gone to a doctor and ruled out anything that's physically going on. We don't know. But at the end of the day, if the decision is, you know what, I'm just not feeling this person and I don't want to be here. Right. At the end of the day, that is her decision. And she can do whatever. Absolutely. She can do whatever she likes.
Absolutely.
Right. Like, and I think in society, sometimes we think we need permission.
Yeah, we do.
Especially sometimes if we have certain backgrounds, if we're very religious, if we're very this or that, then we feel like, oh, I don't want people to kind of see me in this light. But at the end of the day, as individuals, as human beings, we still get to make a decision. And I was thinking, if it was a man, I think, who made this, who wrote this letter, would we be trying to come up with all of this stuff if it was a man, right? Like, who wrote this? Or would we say, oh, he just don't want to make it work. He looking for an excuse to get out, right?
Free my girl. Let her find somebody that want to be with her.
Right. I was thinking a whole lot of stuff, but at the end of the day, individuals, human beings, our hope is people who, like to see stuff work, is that people would do all that they could. Right. But for me, I want people to be happy in the skin that they're in at any given point in time in their life, and how they define that and what that means to them. Is really up to them.
Yeah, right? and it's up to them, and it's their choice and the decisions that they make around what they want their lives to be is completely, it's up to us individually, right?
That's right.
I think, like you just said, I think one of the things is we like to see things work, especially marriages and love, and we don't know what ethnicity this person is, but right. We especially in our community, we want to see that because it's just not highlighted enough. But that person does not have to act on behalf of the entirety of the community, right? They don't have to be the representative. And especially they don't have to be miserable in a situation where they're trying to project something that's not, or they feel like they're acting outside of their authentic self. So I think that's such an important point, Mom. And sometimes it just doesn't work. And people break up, people divorce and say, you know what, it didn't work. We tried it. We lasted for this. It doesn't necessarily mean that the relationship or the marriage is a failure. I'm sure we broke from this situation. We became who we are today or whatever, and we're moving on. And you have to let people be.
That's it. And you know what, at the end of the day, that's the heart of it, right? Because the moment you tell yourself the truth, even quietly, all right, you start making room for freedom.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Right? You start making room for freedom. And that's what this episode really is about, y'all, right? It's
Right.
about loving yourself enough to let go even when it hurts.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Even when it hurts.
And a breakup is painful regardless of whether it's something you wanted, whether it's something that was a tragedy or whatever. It is, if they do decide to part ways, it is still kind of disconnecting yourself from somebody who you've been connected with for a long time. So I imagine that can be easy.
Absolutely.
Got some takeaways, some reflections, y'all.
Yes. So look.
Sure, it's mine.
In the meantime, letting go of love isn't failure. You said this a few minutes ago. It's really just making room for truth. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And sometimes the bravest thing that you can do is choose honesty over habit. Be honest and real with yourself.
Yes, that's a big one. Yeah. Honesty over habit.
Yeah.
Wow.
So here is the question for the week for everybody, the listening audience. What are you learning about love in the meantime?
Yeah, I would love to hear some people talk about or define love.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like what that means, right? Look, you all, we'd love to hear from you. Share your story or your voice note at in the meantime. It just might become our next Porch Talk. So make sure you share. You need to follow us and share with us your thoughts and your questions.
Absolutely.
And don't hold back. Sometimes your truth is the reminder somebody else needs.
So look, for now, in the meantime, I'm learning that endings can be holy too.
Yeah. And in the meantime, I'm choosing truth over comfort.
And in the meantime, I'm remembering that peace is also kind. Yeah, a kind of love.
Yes. Yes. So y'all look, this is In the Meantime.
Wisdom for the spaces between who we were
and who we are becoming.
And look, you don't have to have it all figured out.
Just be where you are.
And take something for the road, preferably peace.
Yes. Peace.
Awesome.
In the Meantime is a production of Black Unicorn Productions. This episode was executive produced by Tanisha Williams. Music by Presence of Sean. Special thanks to you, our community, for sitting with us in the meantime. Until next time, remember, the meantime is a porch, a prayer, and a promise. A sacred space between who we were and who we are becoming. This is In the Meantime.